Hyperkin does it again. Remember this? The Retro N3 was a pretty big review for us. If you haven't seen it yet and you're watching this on a playlist or something like that, then click over here and it'll of course be right there. Or down there is our name. Go ahead and click that and look for the Retro N3 review. It's like I said, it's pretty much our biggest one, so if you don't know what this is, it's down there. But why am I excited here? Why am I talking about this again? Because Hyperkin has done it again. That is the Retron 5, or Retro N5. And why is it the 5? Did I miss the 4? Was I not paying attention? Am I just jumping ahead? No. Company's exact quote, 4 is not enough. And it's true. This thing looks awesome. This is like a retro gamer's wet dream, and I'm going to go into it right now. First things first. Oh, Reploidbill, tell us what it's going to play. Alright, well, if you really want to know exactly what this one's going to handle, get this. They pulled out all the stops with this thing. This thing is a monster. The Super Nintendo, of course, but also the Super Famicom is supported. Nintendo, Famicom, Sega, the Mega Drive, Game Boy, Game Boy Color, and Game Boy Advance. Do I need to point this one out for you? 9 systems. 9. We're only biting bare basics here. It's not just that it plays 9 different systems, it's that it plays them very well from what I've seen. I'm going to go into a bit more information on this thing and tell you something about it here and there, but just standard alone, if it can play this, then that's that. I'm already sold on this thing, because that alone is a huge, 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 huge deal. And for those of you that are wondering, because many of these clones don't do it, they've already promised that they're aiming as hard as they ever have, ever can, ever will. They said not even the FX chip is giving them problems this time. We're looking at 100% play rate for every single game in the library for all 9 systems. Import galore! Let's look at something else. This here is the front of the system. Fairly basic, but I do have to say, in terms of design, especially if this were like an iCollect, which it will be as soon as I get this thing, so far I love the design of this thing. It's sleek and very new looking in terms of what you think for a retro system. Like, it looks really good. In the front view, we have 2 major things to look for here. One, the power switch. Pretty basic. If you don't know what a power switch is, stop playing games right now. Second, we have a sync button. Now, why do we have a sync button? Well, remember the Retro N3 controllers and how I was not exactly pleased? This one will link 4 controllers max. There's not a lot of games that are going to give us much play, I guess is the word I'm looking for with this, but there's one thing I'm kind of wondering. Is it possible to get, say, Zelda the Four Swords Adventure, sync 4 controllers, and play it? Because I've never got to play it. I never had 4 Game Boys with 4 friends that had that game. And if it will let us do that, that would be really, really, really sweet. Let's move on to another view. This is the back of the system. What's important about the back of the system? First, USB. Why is there USB? I've heard 2 reasons for this. One, the controller. The controller is actually chargeable this time, no batteries, and that's a step up, which means Hyperkin was definitely listening to their fans this time when they decided to do this. Now, what else is this for? I've heard rumor that there will be expansions and upgrades to the system which you will be able to download for free from Hyperkin and then plug it into the back of the system and upload updates and so and so and so forth. So that's going to be pretty sweet. And I don't know what the updates are going to be, but here's hoping, right? Maybe they can do something really cool with this. The next thing that I have to point out is that it does have an AV, but who cares? Do you care? Who's still using that TV? I mean, I don't know. A lot of people are actually having difficulties with the Retro N3 or Retron 3 because it had the AV and you couldn't really use it. It also will still have an AC adapter, but duh. And I've heard that they're gonna have S-video cable. This build is known as the Alpha build, and so far I don't see an S-video on this, but I've been told that this will have S-video capability, just like the last one. But let me say again, who cares? Because the real drive here is the HDMI. HDMI on a retro system. Now, at first it seems unnecessary, but think to people that are using specific TVs that won't allow them to use RF or won't allow them to use like the AV anymore. And one of the people on my staff that I can reference right now that's having that problem is Shane. Shane can't play the Wii, and Shane can't play any form of retro system because his TV does not support the standard AV cables anymore. It only handles HDMI and S-video and things like that. So this is going to be a huge deal for people like that that are really wanting to remember or even come back or just get into retro gaming in general, and this system's going to let them do it by offering HDMI, from what I understand, for all systems. And I've been told that it looks awful good on the display, and I've seen a couple pictures of it here and there too, and it's impressed me from what I've seen. Let's move on to something else. This here is the side view. The side? Now, what's cool about the Retron 3 and now the Retron 5 is that it allowed us to play with our original controllers. And Hyperkin, if you go onto their website, you can actually order kind of clone controllers of like the original Nintendo, SNES, Sega Genesis, things like that. So if you were really into those controllers, and they can be tough to track down, Hyperkin makes exact duplicates that are pretty high quality, actually. I've been very impressed with what I've seen and what I've used for that matter. So if you need controllers, they're there. And that's if you want to avoid using the controllers that the system actually comes with. Now, what was I getting at before I got a little bit sidetracked? Of course, again, you will have 6 controller outputs. 2 for SNES, 2 for NES, 2 for Sega Genesis. That will use and support the original controllers and support them perfectly. But this time they're adding a little bit of a bonus. Say you didn't really care for the Sega controller. It was something that it didn't do it for you, right? And at the same time, maybe the NES is a little way too old-fashioned, and maybe the rough corners hurt yourself now, like, so if you can't handle the little cornered edges and whatnot, and you'd rather be using the dog bone display of the SNES controller, well, this time the SNES controller, the NES controller, the Sega Genesis controller, whichever you choose to use, will be supported on all 9 systems. So if you just want to plug your SNES controllers and never worry about it again, that's the end of it. Plug 2 controllers in, never unplug it. Bam! You got it. You got it. Let's move on to something else. Let us talk controller. Now, controller is one of those things that last time was done really, really bad. And as I said, Hyperkin is actually listening to people's complaints. They're making good on things like this. This blows my mind. When companies like Capcom and EA and whatnot that are out there that are like, we're just going to do what we want to do, and if you don't want to buy our crap, then you just get over it. Well, Hyperkin knows that what builds your company is you and me. We are the foundation to their money. Without us, it's all gone. There's nothing for them. And they listened to complainer. Yeah, they listened to the complainers. I was going to say something else, but since I already messed up and said that, that's kind of what I was going for anyway. Now, what do I mean by this? The new controller design is pretty sweet. Now you'll notice that the little joystick thing is there. And was there a reason there's not a D-pad? Actually, yes, there is. From what I understand, there's still some sort of legal debate with Nintendo that Nintendo has actually copywrote the Plus. It's theirs, so nobody else can use it, which is why different controllers like the Xbox and whatnot have to change it up a little bit, or for that matter, the PlayStation just has like the little things, but they're all separated. Well, that's from what I understand the reason. Now, what about these controllers? These controllers, first off, are Bluetooth technology. Supposedly, they have a 15-foot radius before they lose contact, and they're not interrupted by something like crossing in front of you, or even if you're friggin' freezing, whatever. Now, I've had these days, I don't know about you guys, but I've been upstairs or whatnot because my gaming room is, well, upstairs. So sometimes it gets super, super cold outside, and I'm like, oh no, it's freezing. And then, like, I get like a blanket or something, I throw it over. Well, with the new stuff, like Xbox and whatnot, that doesn't mean anything. Older controllers, like even sometimes the GameCube controller could get messed up by that. Like, I'm talking about the wireless, some of the wireless ones. But these are supposedly done exactly like the PlayStation, where we can walk around, put a blanket over us, whatever we got to do to just be comfortable in general, and it's not going to mess with the connection to the system. Also, they have lithium cell batteries in them, so they're going to be rechargeable. They'll recharge quick, and they'll hold a pretty decent charge. I'd imagine holding a charge probably going to be somewhere around 3 or 4 hours, I'd imagine. Now, this isn't something I know for sure, but I'm just talking from experience, like the Game Boys and whatnot that have moved on to this type of charging technology. And I'm pretty sure that it's going to charge quick, and it's going to hold a decent charge. And the controller doesn't look that terrible. Now, I haven't had a hands-on with it yet, so we'll get into this in more depth later on. But for right now, I am kind of pleased with what I'm seeing out of these new controllers, and just the fact that it's the Bluetooth technology, that they actually listened and made an attempt at a better controller, that right off the bat impresses me. So when I buy this system, I'm going to get it, of course, with a second controller, just so I can go ahead and try out the design for myself. Let's move on to something else. This is what we'll see when we turn our system on. It's also available any single time that we're playing a game. Say you're playing Super Mario World for whatever reason, and you end up wanting to stop. There's a home button, a type of sync button or whatever that's on the controller, not on your Super Nintendo controller, of course, but they found a way to fix that as well. Now, if you're playing with the normal controller and you hit the home button, it'll take you to this screen over here. This screen supposedly is where we can choose the system we want to play. We can augment and change certain things, do a couple different options, which I'll go into here in a minute. But essentially, this is what it's going to be, and it's very reminiscent of what I seen on, say, the PSP or the PS Vita almost. It feels like that type of a screen. Maybe kind of like the PlayStation 3 screen. I don't really see that much reference in like Xbox or something like that, but this kind of looks to me like it's probably along the PlayStation user interface type of thing. So that kind of interests me, especially with some of the features that they've added in, which I'll go over here in a second. In fact, let's move on right now. First things first, when we talk about the user interface and the new features, is this. Bam! This is the first time ever on a console that I have ever seen this. That means save states. Yes, you will be able to save state. Now, I'm not even just talking about this for a cheating aspect. Okay, you're playing Metal Gear, or you're playing Ninja Gaiden. You got that one jump, and it's impossible to make. You can save state before you ever take the jump it, and if you make that jump, save the state. Now, this also, if you want to be more legit about it, these type of games, Ninja Gaiden and whatnot, they don't have saves. So, an easier way to do this would be, say you're looking to quit for the night. instead of just leaving your system on like it used to be that we had to do, you can now save the state, go to sleep, wait a day or two, whatever it takes, whatever's in your way, and then come back to it and load exactly where you were. This is also going to be a big deal for something else. Say Final Fantasy 1, Dragon Warrior, Pokemon Gold and Silver. These games are dead. A lot of the times when you get these games, they don't even work anymore. They can't save scores or anything like that. And that's another thing too. If you're saving state on older games that whoever cares for high scores, mind you, you can save state at the end of each night and then load the state as you're getting ready to play the game, so it will actually keep your scores and all your information. Now, Bill, but if we're saving state, does that mean we gotta buy memory cards? No. From what I've heard, this is actually going to have a hard drive. Now, they haven't decided exactly how big of a hard drive we're going to get, but the internal hard drive, I've already been told, is going to be fairly spacious, from what I understand. The exact quote was, we want people to be able to save as much as they need to save. And you're not talking about huge files here. Even for somebody like me, and I've dealt with emulators and things like that before, normally when you save state, it's like a couple KB, maybe. So even if we got like a 20 gig hard drive, it's probably more than enough space, because we're not actually saving full games, we're just saving state. And from what I've seen in all the emulators I've seen, I don't know if it will work different for console, because there's never been something like this, but this interests me to no end. The save state feature is a big sweet deal, so let's move on to something else. Check this out. This is pretty sweet. This is what the HD is going to do. When you plug the HDMI cord, supposedly it takes those images, puts them through a filter, adds shaders, and then when it gives us the picture again, you can see a major difference between one side and the other side. The one side, of course, is the normal one, and then the other side is the upscaled one, and I see a significant difference. Now, I know that this is just a screenshot, and we've been fooled by screenshots in the past before, but this actually looks pretty solid. I don't know if I can doubt what they're saying here, because when they promised that the S-Video cord was going to pick up gaming, it kind of did. A lot of my games looked so much better on the Retron 3 that it was kind of rare that I ever even turned on like my normal Nintendo or something like that, which in a way is good, because my Nintendo, I've taken care of it over the years, but I think it's seen its day. It's pretty beat up, and that's sad to say, but it can be real tough to get certain games to work in it, where on my Retron 3, I simply, done. You'll notice it in a lot of the reviews, because I don't want to fight with the Nintendo to get it to work or something like that. So things like the Super Star Wars review and whatnot, if you haven't seen those, name at the bottom. But we use the Retron 3 a lot here, so it's going to be really exciting to see if the Retron 5 can take this even a step further than what the Retron 3 is already doing. And from the little image up here, I'm pretty excited. If this is really what it's going to look like, then that's really exciting to me. And on top of this, you're going to be able to pick and choose your own filter systems. So you're going to be able to add scan lines, take away scan lines, change, you know, different, how do I put this? I don't know exactly what I'm trying to say here, because I don't know all the terms. I'm going to be honest with you. Even though I've done stuff like this for a long time, I haven't memorized every single term that can possibly be spoken in terminologies. So I know what I'm trying to say. You're going to be able to choose your resolutions, and you're going to be able to choose like widescreen ratios, as far as, from what I understand, like the new formats that we use, all the way back to like the old format that you would have used on your original TV. And you can see this however you want. You can widescreen, you can letterbox, you can whatever you want to do. There's going to be all kinds of filters in this thing, but the biggest thing I'm looking forward to is seeing how HD you can make an old game. That excites me to no end. Let's move on to the next subject. The next thing I'm going to talk about, I don't have a picture and I don't have a sound thing, so you can actually hear what this is going to sound like, but they're using something called interpolation. Now, the way this works is old games used to save sound files in the lowest possible quality, lowest possible format to save space. And this will actually take those old sounds, sample them, and create a type of upscale for each sound. So now I've heard this online, so if you're interested, YouTube should have it. Just look up interpolation Retron 5 or something like that and hear what this sounds like. If this is really the sound quality, it's going to sound better than it did on your Super, than it did on your Sega. And that's something that I'm super looking forward to, because somehow this technology takes the sample before you hear it and somehow upscales it and mixes it, changes the harmonics on it so that it sounds truly better in every single aspect. The pitch was terrific. Now if you go and you find the clip that I'm talking about, it's real short, it's like 1 minute and 43 seconds at the most or something like that. Retron 5 interpolation, it's really, really sweet, and you owe it to yourself to at least hear this, because if it's going to change the quality of the sound of our games, the images of our games, like, this thing is a dream. I cannot wait to play this system. So let's move on to something else. Alright, bam! Remember how I said that they're doing a lot better with their controllers and that it's going to be supported, that whatever controller you want to use, you can use? Well, taking it a step further, if you don't like the layout of any game whatsoever, now some games used to have some bad controls, and it wasn't necessarily that the controls were bad, it was that you were uncomfortable hitting B or A or something like that. Or like nowadays, if the game has changed some of its format where you've been used to hitting A for years and now all of a sudden you're hitting B, if you want to change it, you can. You can change any single one of the controllers to be a layout that you are comfortable with, and because of the internal hard drive, from what I understand, it will save this information permanently. So let's say you want to save the Super Nintendo and redistribute the buttons, reassign them so that they're comfortable for, say, the Sega Genesis, or playing Nintendo, or playing Mega Drive, or whatever it is that you want to redesign the controller to play. Now you can do that. And look, that's pretty sweet. That's sweet for someone that, say, doesn't have the same type of collection that I have. You could buy this thing and then have maybe 2 Super Nintendo controllers left over from your old system, but still collect all 9 systems, because the controller will be supported in your own design, however you want it to work, right there on the Super Nintendo controller. And I've also heard that through the same thing, you will be able to assign button combinations to certain things. So let's say that you are playing Sega or something like that, or even Super Nintendo, and you have like the Raging Demon. You can assign one of the buttons to actually do the Raging Demon. So instead of having to deal with it, which one of the guys on my staff can do this every time and it's irritating, Spencer can always get the Raging Demon, where I just punch and kick everywhere and it doesn't do anything for anybody except annoy me and help them win. So I will be able to format the buttons to automatically, like, say I don't really use the L button because it just doesn't feel too good on my finger or something like that. Well, now I can move into all my normal combos that I'm comfortable with, and whenever I'm ready to get uncomfortable for just a millisecond, tap that button, Raging Demon. That's pretty sweet. So controller wise, this thing looks awesome. Let's move on. Bam! What is that? Let me tell you something. This is one of the coolest features on the system. You will be able to manually increase or decrease the speed of any single game you are playing. This is great news for all those people that wanted to play JRPGs, that you just don't have the time for the level grinding. It's irritating. You can now pop in Dragon Warrior, crank the speed up to about 400%, walk back and forth, kill monsters. You can get like 4 hours of training done in probably 20 minutes. That is huge. And there's another game that it's going to work for, that's going to be even more sweet. Because you don't have to save on the system, you will be able to still save on the cartridges that allow you to save. Say you're still playing, Pokemon. You could play your Pokemon game from, say, anything Game Boy Advance. Put these guys on your Game Boy Advance game. Trade them up, right? Then, level grind the crap out of them at like 700 times speed. Just... And when you're done doing this for like 2 or 3 hours, you got this guy leveled up like a monster. Then trade him into your DS collection and keep playing. That's going to be sweet for people like me. I don't have as much time as I would like with the games I have. And some of the retro games, I admit that I never really went out of my way to beat them or to do certain things. And it's going to be cool, not just the save state idea, but the idea of turning the speed up or down. And for people that like to cheat, this is your lucky day. Say you can't beat Mega Man. You can turn the frames down so that the enemies move slower. You can see everything coming and have more than enough time to react, even though Mega Man will be moving slow too. So if you're into cheating, there's going to be that. I've also heard that for the last little thing to say here, they're going to incorporate cheats. I don't understand exactly how this is going to work. I don't know if it's going to be on the Game Genie aspect or just some sort of built-in cheat device which automatically can recognize that you want, like, all life or all money, like God mode, whatever you want to call it, be invincible, and then you could beat whatever game you ever wanted to beat forever. So that, I guess, is pretty cool. Now, I'm not that big into cheating. I'd rather go through the trouble to actually beat the game. The only thing that I don't really consider cheating is the save state. As long as it's like you could save state at the start of the level like I was talking about. If you legitly beat a level, I'm going to give it to you. You don't always need to go all the way through the game every single time for me to respect you. But it's an option. If you're into cheating, if you're the kind of guy that just wants to break the game and have some fun, break away. I've heard that it's going to allow you to do that, and that's pretty sweet. Now we're going to talk about the very last thing, the thing nobody ever wants to talk about. The cost. Cost. What's this thing gonna cost? Oh, Reploidbill, this thing looks really sweet, but I don't want to pay for 9 systems. Well, normally, you could get, like, say, a Sega for $40 on eBay. You could get a Super Nintendo for in between $40 and $60, $80 at the very most. This thing, they've promised a launch tag below. That's less than $100. Let that sink in for a minute. $100. Can you imagine what it would cost to buy all of these systems? To actually hunt down a Game Boy? To buy a Game Boy Color? To get a Game Boy Advance? To get a Super Nintendo? A Super Famicom? A Sega Genesis? A Sega Master Drive? Nintendo? Famicom? 9 friggin' systems would cost an unreasonable amount of money. And these guys are giving it away. That's with the controller. It's going to have an internal hard drive, the system, and the controller. And from what I've seen so far, 2 color schemes. The one I showed you first, gray, and the one I'm showing you now, black.
Bill wants the black one. He wants the black one.
Do you guys want the black one? I want the black one. It looks pretty sweet. It's like Sony, I think, refers to it as piano black. This thing looks sleek. I mean, for the type of system that we're talking, especially retro design, I said it before in the Retron 3 review. By the way, still, again, if you haven't seen it, that looks okay. It's not the greatest system in the world. And I mentioned that it's kind of an ugly, weird-looking thing, but a lot of systems from that age weren't exactly attractive either. They were always kind of blocky squares, like usually terrible color schemes, that type of thing, really grayish or something like that. But this thing looks awesome. The features look awesome. The whole system looks great. This looks like a big deal, especially for somebody like me. I still love retro gaming. I love to just sit down and pop in Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 3 or Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 4, Double Dragon, play some Dragon Quest, relax with the old Final Fantasies, that type of thing. Like, I'm really into that. I love Final Fantasy VI, and it's gonna not only be available for me to play easily, but I can level grind the crap out of it at higher speeds, while at the same time it's going to look better than it's ever looked before and sound better than it's ever sounded before. Ding 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 ding. This thing looks great. I cannot wait for the Retron 5 or Retro in 5. Hyperkin needs to be a little more specific on what this thing is, because the original thing said Retron, and then it had a little circle, and then the R was in there, and it said 3. Well, because of that, it was called the Retron Retro in 3. But then people picked it up and they started calling it the Retron because they don't want to say Retro in. So now I'm thinking that this thing is pretty much just going to be the Retron 5, because that's what everybody's referring to it as. So, look, I don't really have much else to say about this. For $100, for all the features that it's got, for all the games it'll play, for support of the original controllers, for a controller that doesn't actually look that bad this time, I am super stoked about this thing. I cannot wait to own this system. And I want to hear from you guys. Anybody out there that's seeing this video, anybody that has anything to say whatsoever, if you guys know features I don't know about, if you guys didn't know about some of the stuff that I said, if you guys are just as excited about this as I am, if you guys are like, what's wrong with you, dude? Play your Nintendo. You have a Nintendo. You don't need to buy a Retron 3. If you guys are purists and you hate the idea of this thing even coming out, let me know. Comments in the section below. If you guys like this video and you guys are looking forward to seeing my review when I actually get the system, subscribe to us. That way it goes straight to you as soon as I release the video. I promise you, I'm getting on the waiting list. I'm going to get this as soon as I possibly can, and I'm going to get this out to you. Like, the day this thing comes out, I'm going to take the day off work to make the video. So I'm really super stoked about this thing. I hope you guys are super stoked about this thing, and I cannot wait to retro game. Can you wait to retro game? Let me know. Comments below. Later on.